The earth turned into a barren, radioactive wasteland. Forests burned, cities vanished, oceans boiled, and life on the surface became impossible. What remained of humanity had to hide in bunkers and underground zones. Over the years, a new world emerged, darker, harsher, and terrifying. People called it the Lost Land. In this new age, civilization as we knew it had collapsed. From the ruins of the old world, a single megacity rose, known as Overload. This city was the last known human settlement, and it was ruled entirely by an organization called the Church. The Church had rewritten all laws, controlled the government, the military, and even the minds of its citizens. Freedom of thought was forbidden. Speaking against the Church meant instant death. People lived in fear. Civilization no longer resembled the past. The culture, the systems, the freedom, all gone. Now humans were reduced to obedience. Anyone who rebelled was labeled a heretic. One of those labeled was a woman named Grey. A witch, they called her, though what she truly possessed were powers of illusion and mental control. Because of her ability to bend minds and escape capture multiple times, she was declared a national threat. Today, Grey stood trial in the city's central court. The judges, all church-appointed, sentenced her to death by burning. Bound in chains, surrounded by elite soldiers, Grey was brought before a massive crowd. But just before the execution could begin, she stared into the eyes of one of the soldiers. Instantly, his expression went blank. She whispered a word, and he obeyed. With a swift motion, he attacked the other guards and unlocked Grey's chains. In the chaos, Grey vanished. The crowd panicked. The Church was humiliated. Shortly after, the commander of the Overload soldiers arrived. Known as Commander Arvin, she was feared for her brutality. She swore to hunt Grey down no matter what. But before she could even organize the search, Grey struck again. This time, she ambushed and killed the commander herself, or so she believed. Meanwhile, unrest grew in the city. Church members chanted in protest against Grey. They feared her powers and hated her defiance. Despite multiple capture attempts, she had survived. Some believed she was immortal. Some believed she was cursed. Others whispered she came from beyond the Lost Land itself. Far from the city, deep in the outer zones, a lone man walked through a tunnel. His name was Boyce, a rogue hunter and bounty killer. Skilled in combat and survival, he feared nothing. As he moved through the darkness, a group of bandits ambushed him. Without hesitation, Boyce drew his weapons and eliminated them all, leaving their bodies behind in silence. Elsewhere, Grey returned to a hidden home nestled within the ruins. She was tired, wounded, but alive. There, a tall, regal woman arrived, dressed in dark armor and wearing a crown of glass. She was the Queen of Overload, secretive, dangerous, and unpredictable. She looked at Grey and said, "They say you come from the Lost Land, that you can grant anyone's deepest desire." Grey replied, "It's not a gift. It's a curse. I am bound to fulfill whatever someone truly asks of me." The Queen's voice grew colder. "Then I ask this, make me a shapeshifter. I want the power of a werewolf." Grey's expression changed. "You should think again. Werewolves are powerful, too powerful. Once you become one, you will never return to being human." But the Queen was firm. "I've already made my decision." Grey finally nodded. "Very well. On the night of the full moon, 6 days from now, I will give you what you seek." The Queen smiled and handed her a pouch filled with gold coins. She turned and walked away into the shadows. Soon after, the Queen's personal guard arrived, a tall man with a deep scar across his face. He looked at Grey with intensity and handed her an antique pocket watch. "This belonged to my family," he said. "My wish is that you do not grant the Queen's wish." Grey was taken aback. "Why would you say that?" "I fear for her," he answered. "If she gains that kind of power, she may lose control. I care about her." Grey studied him and replied, "Then I will see what I can do." Later that night, Grey sat in silence, her eyes glowing faintly. She used her powers to see visions of the werewolf. In her mind, she saw a deadly creature being hunted by mercenaries, but they failed. The werewolf slaughtered them all. Its speed, strength, and brutality were unmatched. It wasn't just dangerous, it was unstoppable. Back in the royal palace, the Queen sat beside the king, an old man in the final days of his life. Their marriage was bitter. The Queen despised him, and the king suspected her of betrayal. Their fights were frequent. That evening, after a brutal argument, the Queen left the palace and traveled in secret to the outskirts to meet Boyce. Unknown to the kingdom, Boyce and the Queen had been lovers. Their affair was hidden from everyone. That night, they embraced again. Later, Boyce visited a bar to unwind and play cards. Gray found him there. She approached him and said, "I heard you know every inch of the lost land. I need your help to catch a werewolf." Boyce sipped his drink. "I came here to play cards, not talk about werewolves." She challenged him to a game. She won. Again, she asked for help. Finally, Boyce replied, "There's a place in the lost land called Skull River. That's where you'll find one. But it's dangerous." Gray offered him the Queen's Guard's watch and more gold. He accepted. Just then, Commander Arvin, the one Gray thought she had killed, stormed in with her soldiers. Gray was shocked. Arvin was alive, and angrier than ever. Boyce's pet snakes tried to defend them, but the commander killed them all. Realizing they were outmatched, Gray and Boyce fled. They escaped toward the lost land. Arvin soon discovered their plan, and sent a full squad after them. Boyce took Gray to his friend's hideout, an abandoned village deep in the outer zones. They rested there for the night. His friends welcomed them, but by morning, they continued their journey, venturing deeper into the lost land. Along the way, they passed through lands littered with skeletal remains of giant beasts. The place reeked of death. In Overload, the king's loyal guard met secretly with Commander Arvin. Without the Queen's permission, they launched an all-out military operation to capture Gray. A full train was sent. When the Queen found out, she confronted the guard. "Who gave you the authority?" she asked. "The king still lives," he said. "And the people suspect you. You refuse to give the king an heir. They believe you want the throne for yourself, with Gray's help. We must capture her to find the truth." The Queen said nothing. Meanwhile, Arvin's troops reached the hideout where Gray and Boyce had stayed. They captured Boyce's friends and tortured them for information. Reluctantly, they revealed the direction Gray and Boyce had gone. Even after confessing, one of them was executed. Gray and Boyce kept moving. Eventually, they reached a dead-end canyon. To continue, they had to ascend. Boyce led her to another ally, a man with a functioning cable trolley. But when they arrived, they found him murdered. Suddenly, Arvin arrived with her troops. They wore special goggles to block Gray's hypnosis. Arvin held one of Boyce's friends hostage. "Give me the witch," she said, "or your friend dies." Boyce refused. Arvin executed his friend before his eyes. Rage filled him. He and Gray attacked, but the soldiers outnumbered them. They had to flee. They used the trolley to escape across the canyon. As they crossed, Arvin cut the cable. The cart began to fall. Gray jumped and grabbed the wire, climbing across. She reached the other side. Boyce followed, but Arvin shot him. He was wounded. As she aimed to shoot again, Gray distracted her with illusions and pulled Boyce to safety. She removed the bullet and stitched his wound. Boyce whispered, "Thank you." At the palace, the Queen discovered she was pregnant. But the child wasn't the king's. It was Boyce's. That same night, she killed the king. Gray and Boyce continued deeper into the lost land, unaware that the Queen had murdered the king and was now the sole ruler of Overload. Along their path, they encountered signs of movement, broken trees, claw marks, shattered bones, the trail of something monstrous. They realized that Commander Arvin was catching up fast. They needed a place to rest and hide, even if only for a night. Boyce suggested a place known as Shadow Zone, a cursed area filled with whispers of deadly demons and creatures that hunted anything living. Still, it was the only place where they could stay hidden for a few hours. They reached the edge of Shadow Zone by dusk. There, Boyce created a large ring of fire, using barrels of petrol to keep the creatures away. "They fear light," he said. Gray nodded and sat silently, eyes scanning the darkness. Suddenly rustling. The fire flickered as something stepped through. A large creature, part man, part beast, entered the flame ring. It screeched with a bone-chilling howl and leapt toward them. Gray reacted first, throwing a hallucination in its path. The creature got confused for a second, and Boyce stabbed it in the chest. The creature exploded into black dust. But that was just the beginning. More came. Dozens of demons surrounded them. Smoke, flames, and shrieking filled the air. Then a towering figure stepped into the light, the Demon King. His horns glowed, his skin cracked with fire veins. He extended a clawed hand and lifted Gray into the air. Boyce tried to attack, but was thrown back. The Demon King brought Gray closer to his burning eyes. But she didn't blink. She stared deep into his soul and whispered a word, and instantly his face changed. Her power overwhelmed his mind. The Demon King dropped her, stumbled, and screamed. She then ignited the illusionary fire around her, making him see the world burning. His fear consumed him, and he burst into flames. Boyce, watching it all, asked, "Why didn't your fire hurt me?" Gray answered, "It wasn't real. My fire is an illusion. It harms only those who believe in it." They rested for a moment. But soon, they had to move again. By morning, they arrived at a region called the Fire Field, a rocky, sun-scorched desert filled with molten cracks and sulfur mist. Gray turned to Boyce. "You've helped enough. You should go back." But Boyce shook his head. "I'm not leaving you. I made a choice. I stand with you till the end." They walked onward, but saw in the distance a train moving, a military train. Arvin and her soldiers were on it, coming fast. Gray and Boyce decided to sabotage the track. They broke the rails at a sharp curve ahead. As the train neared, Gray stood on the track to lure them in. The soldiers shouted and opened fire. Gray ran along the broken rail, dodging bullets. When she reached the edge, she leapt off. Boyce caught her. The train couldn't stop. It derailed and crashed into the canyon below, flames erupting into the sky. Commander Arvin and all her troops died in the fall. Back in Overload, the Queen summoned her loyal guard, the one who gave Gray the pocket watch. He stood beside her silently as she had the king's old guard executed, the same man who sent soldiers without her approval. Now, all opposition to her throne was gone. Meanwhile, Gray and Boyce finally reached Skull River, a wide, dried-out riverbed filled with hundreds of skulls, human, animal, and some unrecognizable. Gray pulled out silver daggers, silver chains, and a suit laced with silver thread. Only silver could kill a werewolf. Boyce looked uneasy. "Let's leave this place." Gray shook her head. "We wait. The full moon rises tonight." Time passed. The sky darkened. Nothing came. Then the moon rose. Its light bathed the entire riverbed. Boyce started to tremble. His breathing changed. His eyes glowed yellow. His hands turned into claws. Bones cracked. Muscles shifted. He screamed in agony. Gray stepped back. Before her, Boyce transformed into a giant werewolf, towering, vicious, snarling. His mind was gone. He roared and leapt toward Gray. But Gray didn't flinch. She moved her hands and summoned a dozen illusions, copies of herself. The werewolf attacked them one by one, getting confused. She jumped from behind and stabbed him with a silver dagger. He howled in pain and stumbled. Blood oozed from his shoulder. The moonlight faded. Slowly, Boyce turned back into a human, collapsing to the ground. Naked, weak, and barely conscious. Gray stood over him. "I knew all along," she said. "In my visions, I saw you change. That's why, when I stitched your wound, I slipped a silver coin inside your body. It's poison to your kind." Boyce gasped. "Why?" Gray replied, "Because I needed to end it. I had to bring a werewolf skin to the Queen. But I chose yours." Boyce struggled. "But I love you. You've always fulfilled everyone's wishes. Now fulfill mine. I want to stay with you forever." Gray had already chained him tightly. She crouched, looked into his eyes, and whispered, "Yes." Then she plunged the silver blade into his heart. Boyce died. By morning, Gray returned to Overload. She met the Queen's loyal guard and handed him the werewolf skin. "Tonight," she said, "if the Queen applies her blood to this skin, all werewolf power will enter her." The guard looked at her in shock. "You didn't grant my wish," Gray replied. "I did. You love the Queen." "I know. And now that I've removed her lover from the way, your path is clear. That's the deepest wish of your heart." He said nothing. Later, the guard brought the skin to the Queen. She opened the cloth, stared at the skin, and recognized it instantly. It was Boyce. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked at the guard. "You knew," she said, "and you hid it from me." He tried to speak, but the Queen raised her blade and killed him. The next day, news of the king's death spread. People whispered that the Queen had killed him. Then the guard. Then the witch helped her. Rebellion ignited. The citizens rose. They wanted the Queen's blood. They set fire to buildings. Church flags were torn down. The Queen fled. As she ran, carrying Boyce's skin in a silk wrap, sunlight touched it. The skin began to smoke, then burn. Within seconds, it disintegrated into ash. That night, deep in the ruins, something stirred. Bones snapped back together. Skin regrew. Boyce, the werewolf, rose again. Alive. He wandered for hours, his senses guiding him. Then, from the shadows, he found Gray. She stood waiting. "I knew you'd return," she said. "That's why I killed you. It was the only way to save you from yourself. From her. Now your wish is fulfilled. I'm with you." Boyce said nothing. But in his eyes, there was no hatred, only acceptance. Together, they turned and walked toward the horizon, toward the lost land. They were no longer hunted. Now they were hunters. Their mission, to purge the lost land of all the creatures, demons, and corruption that still plagued it. And so the story ends, not in death but in rebirth. Two souls, one curse, one destiny,